I'm Lisa, 36 years old, living with my husband Peter. We both work for the company my father-in-law founded. Although he has retired, he single-handedly transformed a small construction business into a $300 billion annual revenue enterprise, acquiring rival companies along the way. Despite his forceful nature, everyone admires his business acumen. Peter, groomed to follow in his father's footsteps, was raised as a pampered child. His gentle character, though pleasant, seems ill-suited for the harsh business world. Despite admitting he's not cut out to be a CEO and may just be a figurehead, he shows no serious intention of taking over the company. After 6 years of marriage, I'm frustrated with his lack of initiative. In contrast, I consider myself decisive. My father-in-law, during his active years, appreciated this and delegated tasks to me. Before marrying Peter, I managed finances at a bank. Although I initially planned to be a full-time homemaker, my father-in-law requested I work for a construction company. As I consistently provided insights in board meetings, the members accepted my role, while Peter rarely attended. One day, returning from a meeting, I found Peter nonchalantly watching TV. Angry, I asked why he didn't attend. He dismissed it, claiming he didn't understand the discussions, and the board preferred me. Despite his remarks, my father-in-law was grooming me as a successor. 3 years after attending meetings, he retired completely, and the board consulted me for major decisions, sidelining Peter. I had hoped that our situation would motivate Peter to work harder, but instead, he grew more disengaged. Despite showing up at the office in the morning, he would disappear by noon, spending the rest of the day at home. When he did see me at home, he seemed indifferent to work, avoiding any discussion about the company's affairs. Meanwhile, my workload increased significantly after my father-in-law's retirement. The board members relied on me more, assigning duties akin to a CEO. Managing a large company with numerous employees, I was dedicated to boosting sales and profits for the sake of our workers. With the hard work of our employees, our sales began to grow, and I found the challenges of running the company increasingly fascinating. On the contrary, Peter appeared to be losing interest in his work, and his presence at the company dwindled. The conversations between us at home dwindled, and our relationship became strained. Around that time, Peter casually mentioned meeting your sister Rebecca. She is 3 years older than me and had recently divorced due to infidelity, leading to a tumultuous confrontation at our parents' home. Peter, with his gentle upbringing and calming personality, went to my parents' house to pacify Rebecca's enraged husband in my place. Busy with work, I later learned from Rebecca that Peter effortlessly handled the situation, leaving her impressed. She commended Peter, and Rebecca's husband, initially angered, seemed disarmed by Peter's calm demeanor. Rebecca managed to divorce her husband after paying alimony, but her perspective on Peter shifted. Previously, she viewed him as a rich, pampered son, unattractive and indecisive. However, after the incident, she began to see him as a respectable business owner. Rebecca, now single after her divorce, likely saw Peter as a great catch, especially since she had always been drawn to wealthy men. Engrossed in work, I couldn't fathom such a scenario. Of course, Rebecca wasn't aware that Peter was just a nominal executive with no actual management responsibilities. Rebecca's ex-husband, an elite employee of a foreign company, had boasted to me at their wedding, claiming, "My husband is an excellent employee with a high salary, and on top of that, he's handsome. You're jealous, aren't you?" He exuded handsomeness, intelligence, and a stylish vibe, making it perplexing that she would cheat on such a wonderful husband. 3 months after Peter mentioned having lunch with Rebecca, I returned home to find him unusually serious. He uttered, "Lisa, I have something to discuss." It was the first time he spoke those words, and with my heart pounding, I waited for him to continue. Shockingly, he revealed, "Actually, Rebecca is pregnant with my child, and I want a divorce." Stunned by the request for a divorce, I was even more surprised to learn about Rebecca's pregnancy. Speechless, I listened as Peter explained that Rebecca planned to discuss the matter on our next day off. Stunned, I asked him, "So, you want to marry my sister?" With a troubled look, Peter responded, "It's not that I want to marry her, but if she's having my baby, I guess I have no choice." I sighed in response to Peter's typical indecisiveness and said, "Well, if she's carrying your baby, I suppose it can't be helped. Let's discuss this when she comes over." It felt like my husband, and I couldn't make decisions together, so I decided to meet directly with my sister to figure things out. Although I had already made up my mind to divorce, I felt the need to consult my father-in-law about the company's situation. As the daughter-in-law of the founder, I played a role in running the business, but a divorce would make me a stranger. The next day, I went to my in-laws' house and conveyed exactly what my husband had said to my father-in-law. My mother-in-law, present at the time, was initially thrilled about her son having a child, but quieted down when my father-in-law glared at her. It seemed that she was more concerned about her grandchild and the company's management. After some thought, my father-in-law smiled and said, "Lisa, I want you to continue to be involved in the company's management as you have been. I don't care about Peter. I'll take the responsibility, so let him do what he likes." It appeared that my father-in-law valued the company's management more than his son or grandchild. Despite his retirement, he, as the founder, still held a strong voice in the company, and most of the shares were under his control. With my job settled and my growing interest in my work, it was time to discuss the future with my sister. On my day off, my sister came to my house with a big smile and said, "Lisa, it's a pity you couldn't have a baby. I'll give you plenty of consolation money. Please leave this house immediately." She said it with a triumphant air. My husband, silently listening to our conversation, didn't say anything, despite being the one who caused the problem. Appalled by my husband's indifferent face, I responded, "It's okay to get divorced, but there's also the issue of alimony and the division of property. Let's bring in a lawyer and decide properly." "I never thought you, my sister, would fall for a man like Peter," I retorted with irony. My sister glared at me for a moment, but quickly regained her composure. I came to the realization that it's not solely about looks and external attributes in relationships. Rather, it's about what's inside. It struck me as amusing when my sister spoke, as if she had a deep understanding of my husband's inner self. Holding back my laughter, I remarked, "That's great, isn't it? From now on, live happily with Peter." It seemed my sister's perception of my husband's inner self might be linked to wealth. She appeared to believe he was the president of my father-in-law's company, despite not hearing anything from him directly. After our discussion, my sister declared she would start living with us and arranged for a moving company. Anticipating my quick-tempered sister's actions, I had already secured a new apartment. I hired a lawyer, prepared documents for the division of property, and outlined claims for alimony. The day after moving my belongings, negotiations for alimony and property division commenced with my husband and sister, accompanied by my lawyer. Despite my husband's indifferent demeanor, my sister did all the talking. "As I mentioned earlier, I'm willing to pay as much alimony as you want, so please decide at your convenience," my sister expressed. Hearing this, my lawyer decided to claim alimony against my sister as well, in addition to my husband. Despite my sister paying alimony in installments to her ex-husband, my lawyer had warned that it might be challenging to claim alimony from her. Still, since she expressed a willingness to pay, I decided to make the claim. When it came to property division negotiations, my sister eagerly stated, "This mansion originally belongs to Peter's family, so it shouldn't be part of the division of property, right?" Emotionlessly, the lawyer responded, "This building and the land belong to the company, so it's up to the company to decide." It appeared even my husband thought the house belonged to his father. "Is that so?" "I thought this house was Dad's," he casually remarked. On the other hand, my sister was taken aback and confronted the lawyer, asking, "Wait a minute, does that mean I can't live in this house?" The lawyer replied in a businesslike manner, "Since it's company property, you can continue to live here if the company allows it." At this remark, my sister appeared to breathe a sigh of relief. "Oh, you should have said that earlier. It'll be fine since Peter, the president, will be living here," she confidently asserted. The lawyer, momentarily surprised, then burst into laughter. "What are you talking about, Lisa? Is the president not Peter?" he chuckled. Observing my sister, who was planning to remarry my husband without knowing this fact, I couldn't help but laugh. Swiftly, my sister turned to my husband, exclaiming, "Ha, Peter, you're not the president." Stepping in for my troubled husband, I explained, "Peter is merely an advisor without any executive rights. I am the executive director, but I was also made president. Our father-in-law, the founder, had always been the president. However, when he retired, he made me an executive director and even the president. The other executives appreciated my performance, and there was no opposition." In contrast, my husband, thanks to his father's arrangement, received an executive salary as an advisor without executive rights, a situation more pitiable than that of a mere employee. Despite the executive title, he wasn't actively involved in work, resulting in a salary less than what an ordinary employee would receive. As he remained indifferent to household finances, he didn't even care whether the house he lived in belonged to the company or his father. Although our home was company-owned, my responsible father-in-law consistently charged me rent. While I considered it a typical rental property, the lawyer, still laughing, asked, "Can we continue to rent this house to Peter?" My sister reacted strongly to the notion of rent. "What do you mean by rent? Are you suggesting that I take rent from Peter? It's the company's property. Just make it free," she insisted. The lawyer, presenting the rent amount with hearty laughter, shocked both her and her husband Peter, who seemed to be learning about it for the first time. "Guess a house this big does have a high rent. I can't afford that with my salary," he admitted. His executive compensation would barely leave any money behind. Paying that rent would make covering their living expenses challenging. Over the 6 years of their marriage, Peter had used up all his modest executive compensation, and my salary had disappeared in high rent and living expenses. There were hardly any assets left, and splitting the savings was the only way for asset division after the lawyer left. My sister, now aware of the intricacies, realized that the mansion she had been hoping for was actually rented, leaving her utterly deflated. Staring blankly, Peter continued, grinning as usual. I suggested, "Why don't we vacate this place and go back to your parents' house? Your mother was so happy about the pregnancy news." Peter agreed. I couldn't help but laugh at the idea of why I had to think so much about this man who was about to be my ex. I started pondering whether this unreliable man could effectively raise a child, but I decided to let it be. It wasn't my concern. Turning to my sister, who appeared to have forgotten about her own alimony, I asked, "Are you okay with the alimony payment, sis? You seemed pretty confident, but you're also paying your ex-husband, right?" She was stunned to hear this, her face suddenly snapping back to reality. "I have to pay it too," she exclaimed, seemingly having heard nothing of the earlier discussion. "In the day you said, 'I'll give plenty of alimony,' but you weren't expecting me to pay it, right? My salary is really low." Peter and my sister exchanged surprised glances. Though not a lawyer, watching these two made me want to burst into laughter. Despite already obtaining signatures on the divorce papers and alimony request documents, it didn't matter to me. Yet, seeing Peter and my sister in this situation felt pathetic. My ex-husband, who had remarried my sister, had returned to his parents' home, just as I had warned. However, constant quarrels seemed to erupt between my sister and my in-laws. The main cause of the conflict was the lie about my sister being pregnant with my ex-husband's child. His mother, hoping for an heir, was extremely angry. My father-in-law, who had disliked my sister from the beginning for stealing his son from me, hadn't even spoken to her. He fronted the alimony for Peter, and I was paid in full, but my sister, seeing this, pleaded with him. "Dad, could you please pay my alimony as well?" To this, a father-in-law responded, "I have no reason to be called Dad by you." He was fuming. Unable to obtain what she had hoped for, my sister ran away from my ex-husband's family home without a word and went missing. She had practically remarried my ex-husband just to bear the burden of alimony, which was utterly foolish. My ex-husband seemed to consider getting back with me, but his father scolded him, "You're the kind of man who should never even think about having a family. You can't even take care of yourself properly." I wouldn't get back with my ex-husband, even if he begged me. I had stopped believing in him when he cheated on me with my sister, and I was disgusted by his indifferent attitude during our discussions. He was dismissed from his executive position and is now working as a temporary employee. I've continued being the CEO, which is the core of my life. I don't even think about remarrying someone after the breakup. I've kept in touch with my father-in-law, receiving advice when needed. For now, I want to focus on the company, thinking of it as being married to it for the sake of my employees.